dialects? How do they deal with drug pushers? How do they actually create and maintain it as a real communal space? But it seems to me that there is no other way we can think about revolution, that the only possible way we can think about revolution is as the creation, expansion, multiplication, and confluence of such communist spaces, of such cracks in the texture of capitalist domination. And it seems ridiculous. It seems ridiculous if you begin to think that, in fact, this Navarino Park isn't just a kind of tiny local example. Slavoj would probably like me to say, or might, but it is actually something that exists all over the place. That all over the place, people create spaces. They create no-go areas. They create areas in which they say, no, here capital will not come in. Here we are going to develop our lives according to a different logic. And if you go to the southeast of Mexico, if you go to Chiapas, to the Zapatista area, all around the Zapatista area there are signs saying, bad government, stay out. Here the people rule. But it's something that you can imagine in Navarino Park, as I said. It's something that exists around occupied factories. It's something that exists, say, in the free software movement. It's something that we all do. It's something that we all do in our relations with our children, in our relations with our loved ones. We say, capital, keep out. Here we are doing something else. Here we are developing different social relations. And when you begin to think of it like that, you begin to see that the world is not simply a world of domination, that the world is actually a world of cracks, a world of interstitial communism. So perhaps communism isn't the word. It isn't, in fact, communism. What you have is perhaps not communism, but communizing, a process of communizing in which people are trying to communize the society in many different ways. The only communism that we could really talk about, I suppose, in any full sense, would be a world system in which we all participated in determining our own lives. But for the moment, at least for the moment, all we have is these movements from the particular, these movements of communizing, of communization, if you like. And to talk of experiences like that, to talk about in terms of communizing, I hope makes it clear that I'm not thinking of micro-politics. It is not just the local, it is not just the garden. But if you think, it seems to me that it doesn't help to think of those spaces as autonomous spaces, because autonomous spaces implies something self-contained, that they are cracks, and cracks move, cracks run, cracks shoot out in all directions. Cracks come together. And they come together in ways that we can often not anticipate and not organize. So to think of radical social change, thoroughgoing change, we need to think of a confluence of cracks. But the question is, the problem is that we don't have any model for talking about this confluence. We can say, obviously, that the confluence of the cracks, the coming together of the cracks, requires some sort of organization. But this sort of organization is not institutionalization, because institutionalization doesn't work. And institutionalization doesn't work because the cracks, by their nature, are thresholds, are opening to a different sort of society, to different sorts of social relations. And an institutionalization is always the imposition of the present upon the future. And that is why, in fact, institutions never work, it seems to me, as a way of promoting the confluence of cracks. How do we organize a revolution? As Raoul Sibeki says, we can't organize a revolution. In fact, we can't organize a rebellion. Rebellion is a movement that nobody controls. What we can do is try and strengthen it. What we can do is try and promote these cracks, try and create and expand these cracks, but we can't institutionalize them, we can't organize them. And that is the answer to Savoy's question about Evo Morales. In Bolivia, between 2000 and 2005, we had a huge explosion of cracks, a huge explosion of communizing. And what the election of Morales did was to channel that communizing process into its logical opposite, in other words, into state forms of organization, and in many ways to bring that process to a closure. Not completely, of course, because it's very contradictory. But that is what institutionalization does. It kills cracks. Communizing and statification are processes that move in opposite directions. So then what? How do we promote how do we think about the confluence of cracks? How do we think about strengthening the communizing process? I think that the only way, perhaps the best way, is to think in terms of resonances, in terms of radiations, in terms of light shining in the dark. For me, Navarino Park is a light that shines in the dark, and the dark is a very, very, very dark. But it's a light that shines, and it's a light that lights up the dark. And look around, and begin to see those other lights. And that is what we have to do. That is what we have to do. We have to strengthen those lights and create those lights. And that, for me, is communism.